Chapter 3. Julian. Julian wore his solitude and loneliness like old, ill-fitting shoes. He was used to them. In many ways, they had grown comfortable. But over time, they were bending him out of shape, causing calluses and bunions that would never go away. It was 10 a.m., so Julian was walking down the Fulham Road. For 5 years or so after Mary, he often didn't get out of bed, and day morphed seamlessly into night, the weeks losing their pattern. Then he discovered that routines were crucial. They created buoys he could cling to, keep himself afloat. At the same time, every morning, he went out and walked the local streets for an hour, picking up any supplies he needed on the way. His list today read: eggs, milk, 1 pint, butterscotch flavored Angel Delight, if pos. He was finding Angel Delight more and more difficult to track down, and since today was a Saturday, he would buy a fashion magazine. This week was Vogue's turn, his favorite. Sometimes, if the news agent wasn't too busy, they would discuss the latest headlines or the weather. On those days, Julian felt almost like a fully functioning member of society, one with acquaintances who knew his name and thought his opinions mattered. Once, he'd even booked an appointment at the dentist, just so he could pass the time of day with someone. After spending the whole appointment with his mouth open, unable to speak as Mr. Patel was doing goodness knows what with the selection of metal instruments and a tube that made a ghastly sucking noise, he realized this was not a clever tactic. He left with a lecture on gum hygiene ringing in his ears and the resolution not to return for as long as possible. If he lost his teeth, so be it. He'd lost everything else. Julian paused to look in through the window of Monica's cafe, which was already filled with customers. He'd walked this road for so many years that in his mind, he could picture the various reincarnations of this particular shop, like peeling back layers of old wallpaper when you're redecorating a room. Back in the 60s, it was the eel and pie shop, until eel fell out of favor and it became a record shop. In the 80s, it was a video rental store, and then, until a few years ago, a sweet shop. Eels, vinyl records, and VHS tapes, all consigned to the dustbin of history. Even sweets were now being demonized, blamed for the fact that children were getting larger and larger. Surely it wasn't the fault of the sweets. It was the children to blame, or their mothers. He'd definitely chosen the right place to lead the Authenticity Project. He liked the fact that he'd ordered tea with milk and not been asked all sorts of complicated questions about what specific type of leaf he wanted and what sort of milk. It came in a proper china cup, and no one demanded to know his name. Julian's name was accustomed to being signed at the bottom of canvases. It did not sit comfortably scrawled on a takeaway cup like they'd done in Starbucks. He shuddered at the memory. He'd sat in a soft, scarred leather armchair in the far corner of Monica's, in an area lined with bookshelves that he'd heard her call the library. In a world where everything seemed to be electronic and paper, was a rapidly disappearing medium Julian had found the library, where the smell of old books mingled with the aroma of freshly ground coffee, wonderfully nostalgic. Julian wondered what had happened to the little notebook he'd left there. He often felt like he was slowly disappearing without trace. One day, in the not-too-distant future, his head would finally slip under the water and he'd leave barely a ripple behind. Through that book, at least one person would see him properly. And writing it had been a comfort, like loosening the laces on those uncomfortable shoes, letting his feet breathe a bit more easily. He walked on.